Now we're on.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Cheers.
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 So, good beer
Delicious beer.
and good movies, or maybe not good movies.
It was an okay movie.
You know, are you doing that too? I don't know.
Here's a little delay.
Yeah. So, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice and Star Wars because of the Blu-ray release.
It just makes sense, yeah. To
Yeah,
double back to it a
Star
little
Wars:
bit.
The Force Awakens. Maybe we can even touch on that trailer of Rogue One that showed today.
Definitely.
All right, so we have. This is Ron.
Hi, this is Rick.
Yeah, hi. So we're kind of
What are you drinking?
We're movie guys. I'm drinking a Flying Fish Abbey Double.
Ah, nice.
What do you got?
I've got a Mad Hatter. I'm not sure. Oh, New Holland. New Holland Brewing. The Mad
Nice.
Hatter. Yeah.
Nice.
Delicious.
So-
should I be looking at Ron's
Thank you.
Periscope or yours?
Either one. You know, no, mine because he's
Because
not.
I just
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not
well,
on.
Okay, sorry. There's, we're getting, it's the editor, that's not
Producer.
whatever.
you're getting comments.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, am I? All right. Batman vs Superman had a lot going on. Well, actually, we're going to get on to that because Ron and I have big kind of differences on takes in this movie, and
Overall, I would venture to say that we're both probably on the same page in the sense that it's good.
right now, a little bit of background on me at least. I grew up a big comic book fan, so to me, seeing this, I'm very critical, but I'm also a big movie fan. So I tried to go into it pretty neutral. Like, what's your take going into it?
I've waited for this one for a while.
Okay.
I've waited for a good Superman film for a while, and I felt like I got it with Man of Steel, so that sort of amped up my anticipation for this one. I was really looking forward to this.
Okay.
Especially with a lot of the things that were coming out about it. Like, just for example's sake, I mean, the choice for Ben Affleck as Batman. I really like Ben Affleck. I
Yeah,
thought he
so
was on a little bit of a hot streak. I saw this as being a really good casting choice, so I was kind of excited to see how it would go. I mean, I was really looking forward to it.
Right.
Read
Yeah.
comic books for years and everything. I mean, this was one that I really earmarked as maybe DC's kind of coming out party to keep up with Marvel a little bit.
Yeah, and they needed to do something because I mean, Marvel's pretty much owned everything. Now DC on the TV side, DC has kind of been owning it.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel's got some good shows, and you can't. And I don't count the Netflix shows as TV. It's kind of more of a rental thing, and that's going. Maybe we can do that in another broadcast or whatever. But I mean, so we both have comic book backgrounds. We're familiar with it a little bit, and then so we both went into this, and we came out of it seeing two completely, kind of not completely different sides, but a good difference. Cartoon movies are really good. Actually, that's a good comment. The cartoon movies are really good. We're live on Periscope anyway for anybody who's watching on YouTube. That's why. So the cartoon movies have been really good, but I feel in the past couple of years they've slid down a little bit. And
I thought they'd be kind of hit and miss.
yeah, they have.
When and that's sort of the same way I felt about the movie. The stuff that it got really right, it really knocked out of the park and really did a great job with. The stuff that it got wrong, it fell flat on its face off. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, all right. So, well, let's start out. We'll start with Batman vs Superman because we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Visually, what do you feel about the movie visually?
I thought it looked spectacular. I really did. I mean, front to back, it felt a little bit more like a Batman movie in the sense that it was a little bit dark and it was gritty. It was a lot of really low light settings. When I think of Superman, I think of... I keep going back to the animated series. And I think of something really bright and something really colorful. And
Right.
you really didn't get that here. But I still liked it, and I still thought that it worked. It just had a little bit more of a Watchmen Batman type feel to it than it did
Yeah,
Man of Steel Superman.
I agree. My one critique of it visually, other than the darkness factor, is because we grew up in the Chris Reeves movies, so
Right.
so like that was another bright thing. Even when he got into his darkest in that terrible Superman 3, it was still brightly colored. So the color didn't bother me as much as when Doomsday first appeared. By the way, There are spoilers, so if you don't, if you haven't seen it, you probably want to go away, or you're just going to be. We're going to talk about the whole thing,
right? Unless you have no intention of seeing it, in which case,
and then it's
roll right along.
But visually, when Doomsday came out, there were a couple spots where I thought it looked too CG. It reminded me of the first Hulk movie that Ang Lee directed back in the day.
I didn't think it was quite that bad.
A couple spots.
I really think you're being a little bit harsh in that regard. I mean, it's not that. That really did look like a cartoon character that was jumping in the middle of a live action movie. I mean, this wasn't quite that bad.
But for a couple, I guess we're getting more. All right. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
That's
yeah. It's not that bad. You're right. But when he first showed up, there was just something that when he first showed up on screen, I kind of was like, oh man, this is going to look like garbage the whole time. And then it got really good. Like that whole scene was just it blew me away, and I kind of wish they would have done one more. Doomsday was the best, but I kind of wish they would have done one more evolution of him where he looked more like the
Doomsday,
comic book
like the
counterpart.
Doomsday, Death of Superman style.
What was that, like 1992? Something like that.
Yeah.
So I've been waiting for this movie since 1992, basically, and I kind of wish they would have taken that one extra step to make him have a full evolution into kind of like the longer hair and the bigger bone protrusions.
Exactly.
But I think overall the Doomsday fight scene was just awesome.
It was really well done.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that the only thing about that particular fight scene that I thought was a little over the top was giving Doomsday like heat vision and different superpower. I thought that was a little much. If you go back to his portrayal in the comic books, he was literally just like the Hulk. I mean, that was basically what he was.
And I agree with you 100%. I mean, that was my main problem with the movie was
he just didn't need it.
I mean, yeah, he evolved every time he did that, but I didn't know a nuclear warhead could do that to Superman. Actually, somebody commented, I didn't know a nuclear warhead could do that to Superman. In the Dark Knight Returns comic book, there was a graphic novel. Did Frank Miller do that?
Yep.
All right. So this Ben Affleck's Batman was actually based on that, and in that comic book, he did actually get hit by a nuclear warhead, and it did do that to Superman. So they really recreated that scene from the comics.
I mean, I hate using the term borrowed, but they really did. I mean, they borrowed quite a bit from The Dark Knight Returns. I mean, to the point where, we talked about this before, too. I mean, I thought that this, for me anyway, this really felt like two separate movies that were kind of smushed together.
Right.
It was like they tried to remake The Dark Knight Returns. Well, not remake it, but they tried to do a live-action version of The Dark Knight Returns and kind of mishmash it with the Death of Superman storyline.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of got convoluted a little bit, was they were trying to cram two different things into one movie. And you had mentioned that before we went on here. Somebody had mentioned that, well, if Doomsday's from Krypton and Superman's from Krypton, wouldn't they have the same powers? Well, you would think logically as a storyteller they would. In the comics, they didn't. He was just kind of like a genetic experiment. And it kind of...
This still sort of kind of follows the same...
It does.
The same spirit of the storyline, I guess.
Right.
Like, I didn't have any problem with turning Zod into... Again, spoiler alert.
No, actually, I think the way they did it was great.
It was clever.
It was a great way of doing it.
It was a nice way to kind of tie both movies together, and I thought it made sense. For me, that wasn't something that didn't work.
I think Zack Snyder just wanted to blow a lot of shit up.
Well, he did.
And
again,
and it almost reminded me of a Michael Bay movie in that essence, where he really didn't need to have Doomsday emitting all that power, but
no, he was. I mean, if you go back to not to keep referencing the same point, but if you go back to the comic book storyline, that was one of the things I thought was so cool about Doomsday. He didn't need all these other powers and everything. He was just a force of nature that was just going to rip through whatever was put in front of him.
Yeah. And that's probably part of the problem with Superman in general, is that he's so strong.
Yeah, it almost makes the character a little difficult to, find a story arc for.
Yeah, and maybe that was part of the problem with a lot of people's going into it, was well, how could Batman possibly fight Superman? But dialogue-wise, I honestly I don't remember anything in the movie that stood out to me dialogue.
No. I mean, again, I have issues with the script, but dialogue-wise, no, it was fine. I mean, I didn't really have any...
It didn't need anything. I mean,
no, not really.
Yeah, it was more of a visual thing.
It was.
I mean, I think the critics are too hard on it. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, there are movies out there that have just god-awful dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hard. Like, this isn't even approaching, like, not to pick on them, but, I mean, just since we're doing Star Wars later, but the Star Wars prequels. That was the worst written movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, any one of the three of them. I mean, you could cherry pick any of them. And they're awful. I mean, the script is absolutely terrible.
There's salvageable things about it, though. Like, I went back and I watched it with my kids, and there's things, it's bearable. It's not big,
good.
But when it's problem because when you grow up on the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6, and you go and you watch 1, 2, and 3, it is horrible.
Right. This isn't anywhere near that.
Right.
I mean, this is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion. Batman vs. Superman, in terms of, like, the actual script writing and everything, in terms of the dialogue between characters, is fine.
Right.
No issues.
So, there's a lot of controversy, though. So going into it, how would you rate it as a comic fan versus a movie fan?
It's good. I mean, each side. I mean, depending on each side. I don't really have a strong, it's good. I don't really know what else to say other than it's good.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't deserve the hate it's getting.
No. It's definitely being dogpiled on a little bit.
Yeah.
However, the stuff that people are pointing out as having an issue with, in my opinion, is definitely an issue.
Okay, so let's talk about one or two of those issues.
Okay.
Batman is a mass murderer.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit before. I mean, I don't necessarily have an issue with the fact that he's out there clearly killing people.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds weird to say that's fine, because obviously that's not fine.
Right.
But I could understand the motivation for the character if it's explained a little bit better, and I don't feel like it is. I don't feel like
it is not explained, and this is what I got walking out of it, was that he wasn't a mass murderer. I didn't, and maybe it's because I had seen the Michael Keaton movies and all those movies.
Yeah, Batman Returns, I mean, same thing. He's out there.
He didn't kill any more people in this than he did in that.
But those movies are criticized for that, too, though, at the same time, if you remember.
I know. But Ben Affleck was a far superior Batman and Bruce Wayne than any of those guys ever were.
He stole the movie.
He did. He really was the best live-action Batman and Bruce Wayne we've gotten. I mean, he did everything that he was supposed to do. So
he did. He was absolutely chewing scenery. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was really, really, really good.
And
I felt a little vindicated, actually, coming out.
Yeah. and between him and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, I mean...
Well, even focusing on, Batman for a second, Jeremy Irons as Alfred, I thought was phenomenal. He was terrific. I mean, even seeing him in the Batcave, I love the way the Batcave was laid out. Pretty much everything Batman-centric, I thought was absolutely 5-star.
Honestly, you know what? You mentioned Batcave. I honestly didn't even focus. I honestly cannot remember the Batcave.
It looked like a perfect headquarters. I mean, you had a little repair shop for the Batmobile, and you saw Jeremy Irons down there, kind of tinkering with some of his equipment, and it was great. I mean, I really dug it. The Robin suit with the painted, jokes on you, Batman, I thought that was great. And that could have been used to explain Batman's motivation for why he kind of tossed aside his moral code.
Well, and he kind of even mentioned, we've seen good people go bad, so obviously...
They insinuated it, but I thought that if they took it a step further, and this kind of ties into my next problem with the movie, that could have been used as part of the issue for, I mentioned to you before, I felt like I understood perfectly what Batman's problem with Superman was. And I thought that was beautifully done. Like, it was
absolutely.
Perfect.
That was beautifully done.
It actually handled one of my problems with Man of Steel, too. When in Man of Steel, they basically just destroyed Metropolis. I thought this gave a really good explanation for, the fallout from that.
Right.
This was like a 9/11 event in Metropolis.
Yeah.
A lot of Wayne employees were, hurt and killed, and...
Yeah, it was good that they addressed that. But that goes back to my problem with Doomsday is... You knew Doomsday was going to be a big mass-destroying machine, and they gave him more power than he needed to have. So we got Metropolis destroyed again.
Yeah.
So who's rebuilding the city at that point? I mean, even if you're Lex Luthor or Bruce Wayne or whoever's got all the millions of dollars or billions that you got, I mean, who's rebuilding the city? None of that was addressed. And my background, I'm an author, so I'm picky with that kind of stuff. But overall, I mean, it really, I really enjoyed it, and I kind of want to see it again because I think I gave it too high of a rating, and you were mentioning this earlier. I think I need to go back and watch it again from different perspectives and see it, because I went into it as a movie fan, not a comic fan.
Well, what I was kind of getting to was, you had all this happen to Batman, and again, Batman's motivation for his hatred of Superman is perfectly explained.
Right.
Perfect. However, on the flip side, I didn't think that they really explained what Superman's issue with Batman was almost at all. And like I said, Batman tossing aside that moral code that he had before, that would have been the perfect way to explain that. It's like, okay, Batman, you got to stop killing people. It's the perfect way to kind of like connect
I also
the two.
heard that people were complaining about Superman being a mass murderer, and I don't really see that. It's not like Superman went into that fight, even though he was kind of put into that fight for a reason.
Right.
He didn't go into that fight going, "Oh, I'm going to kill Batman."
Right.
He went into that fight going, "I need to get him to help me out." He really wanted to do the right thing, and you could tell that was his struggle the whole time. And
that was fine. The connection with the whole Martha thing, I gotta admit, I never thought of that, to be honest with you. As stupid as that sounds, as many years as I've been reading comic books and everything, that wasn't something I ever really thought of. It just never occurred to me.
Yeah.
But that was actually, I thought, kind of a clever way to sort of connect the two. I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed. The fight was really short.
This fight was short.
For a movie that was, God, it had to be. If it was a minute, it was at least 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Fight could have been more than 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, yeah, it was for a movie that's called Batman vs. Superman.
There wasn't a lot of verses.
Big of a fight. Yeah. So, well, okay, so we both agree that it was at least an average movie to an above average movie.
I skew a little bit more toward average, but yeah.
Okay. And I'm probably more
we certainly
agree
that it's not worth the hate that it's being
definitely
dumped
not.
on. No.
All right, so where do you think it goes from here?
In terms of
like everything that's been done in the movie. I mean, you had, spoiler alert, Superman's dead. Clark Kent's dead.
Which, by the way, I didn't like the way that they did that either. I thought that it was at least a little bit of a bold move to kill Superman off, but to kind of insinuate that he's being resurrected, like, literally 5 minutes later, I thought was a little bit gutless.
I have a theory on that, and here goes my comic nerd thing. So, there were a few things that if you weren't a big geek like me, that you wouldn't pick up on. So, the scene with Cyborg when he's getting constructed from nothing. That cube in the front was called a mother box in the comics.
Yep.
That was technology that
Darkseid.
The dream sequence that
but
Batman
they never explain it. It's just for somebody that's not indoctrinated to the comic book storyline, and this goes to some of the points that you're about to get to. You're going to be completely confused. It's
If you're not a comic book fan, you don't pick up on any of this stuff. So, so maybe it really didn't deserve the rating that I gave it as a non-comic fan, because it is confusing. You just
wouldn't get it.
You got the Batman dream sequence, and we'll get to the latter half of that in a second. But the scene, he had the mother box with Cyborg, you had the parademons in that. This all ties together in the Darkseid. And in the sand, in the desert, there was an Omega symbol. That is all part of this character, Darkseid. And I think that the soil rising at the end might be Darkseid using Superman's body in a potential sequel.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I mean, I saw them setting up Darkseid and everything, but if I remembered right, when Superman in the Man of Steel had flown for the first time, didn't all the soil kind of rise up around him, if I remember right?
It did.
Okay, that's kind of the way that I thought about it.
I didn't think about that. So, I mean, it really could go either way.
Either way, we both came to the same conclusion. We just got to it through two different means.
Cameos, which goes to the Batman scene.
I didn't like it. I mean, I gotta admit, I thought it was again, this goes back to my overall problem with the movie. I mean, if I was to take like a little synopsis of what my issue was with all of it, the movie was far too interested in setting up other movies to the point where I felt like it forgot to be a good movie by itself.
Right.
It just didn't need. It was almost like it was trying too hard to force too many characters. Like, just for example, I mean, the Justice League by itself is such a cool organization. Man, what a shitty way to introduce it.
Well, you
get
got
an email with all these little like security video clips
I didn't
like this.
see. I didn't mind that because that was stuff that she had been doing for years. She's obviously in some kind of government organization, and she's doing that. And Bruce Wayne gets a hold of it. I don't have a problem with that.
But it's the
at
same
all.
thing. They don't explain any of that.
Yeah, it was kind of rushed in there.
Then
That part of it I didn't mind. What I really minded was at the end of the Batman dream sequence when the Flash showed up. To me, even as a comic fan, that was really confusing.
Yeah.
It was
I
like,
agree.
is that really part of his dream? What's going on here? So that part of the writing was really bad, in my opinion. And it didn't look good either. I mean,
No.
it was the worst part of the movie. So,
I mean, again, we're both kind of familiar with the storyline.
Mhm.
We both picked up on it. But I can only imagine somebody that really wasn't familiar with what it was, what was happening, you would have no idea what the hell was going on. Like, I can't imagine somebody, just a standard audience member, just coming in with really no background knowledge of, the Justice League or any of the characters, that you would have any idea what that meant whatsoever. So it's the same thing. I mean, why do it? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I felt like the movie tripped itself up on all over the place.
yeah. All right, so if you had to give the movie overall, with everything that we've talked about, on a scale of 1 to 5, how many stars would you give it?
2.5. It's okay. I mean, it's good. I can't honestly. I mean, walking out of it, I mean, the way that I usually look at it is, okay, did I regret paying to see it? And I didn't. I'm not running back to see it again.
Right. I feel the same way, actually.
Yeah.
I'll give it a little higher rating. I would say 3, maybe like 3.5 out of 5.
But I mean, where I always come across sounding a little bit disappointed, just because again, this is a movie I wanted to love. Like, I wanted to walk out immediately wanting to run back in and see it again.
Right.
And when I didn't, I mean, that's kind of a bummer. I mean, again, this is one that I've really looked forward to for a long time.
Yeah, when
And
you
the
come
fact-
out of a movie, you want to.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be like really excited about going back and having that second opportunity to see it again. And when I didn't, that was a bummer.
Well, I think that's a good segue to go into the next movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. There's just as much controversy, and the Blu-ray came out this week, but there's just as much controversy with that movie that there was with Batman vs Superman. Mainly because everybody's complaint was it was the same as Episode 4.
Nah, I don't see that. I really don't. I mean, I could see certain little nods to it, but I was so convinced that that was by design. And again, to a degree, you kind of have to look a little bit long term with where the plot's going to go.
Right.
Kind of in the same way, like I look at The Force Awakens in the same way that I looked at like the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Okay.
In the sense that this is very definitively part one of a story. Of one story. Like, you're just seeing 1/3 of the play.
Right.
It's a little bit difficult to say, oh, well, it felt like that. Like, in my opinion, there's very defined reasons that this kind of reflects back on A New Hope.
Yeah, I mean, it really, and it goes with the old saying too. History repeats itself.
Yeah.
It really does, and everything that they've done. I mean, really, yeah. Okay, Episode 7 was a way, from a writing perspective, it was a way of bringing in the old fans like us.
Yep.
And bringing it to a new generation. And I walked out of there as an old fan, going, I was really happy with that.
I loved it.
Yeah, and
I gotta admit, I adored it. Like,
my kids loved it.
this was a movie that I was running back in to go see. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to double back in and see it again. Like, I adored it. It wasn't perfect. There was stuff that, I had a little bit of an issue with. But in general, I loved it. It was funny. There were legitimately interesting characters. There was enough new things happening to the point where it kept me engaged. There was actually, like, good, we talked about dialogue with the Man of Steel. There was legitimately really good dialogue.
There was really good dialogue.
It was self-aware. Even the special effects. I mean, if you go back and you relook at, like, let's say, I mean, you brought up Michael Bay before. If you look at the first couple of Transformers movies, for example, it was like an orgasm of action, just everywhere. I mean, there was like the camera angles were all over the place and stuff was close up, and there was a great sense of scale. I mean, there would be things, but the focus was never off whatever the main character was. I thought it was great. I really thought it was an awesome movie.
I really did. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, there were certain things in it that made me go, oh, God, there's all these questions that are coming out. But it was a good way of setting up a trilogy because now everybody that has seen Episode 7 is going to go see Episode 8.
Right.
And honestly, and, you know, we talked about, we might touch on this, was the Rogue One trailer came out today. I'm kind of hoping, I have no desire to see anything out of the main series because I was never really a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movies, but it makes me want to see Rogue One now because I want to go and see, well, maybe we'll find out who Snoke is.
Right.
Maybe we'll find out who Rey and Finn's parents are. You know, it's a prequel to...
That's certainly hinted.
Yeah.
The internet's kind of running away with that a little bit.
I know. I saw a couple really cool memes about that. So, I mean, I don't know why there was so much hate. We all knew going into it that, spoiler alert, Harrison Ford said he wasn't going to do another one unless his character was killed off.
But I mean, that's not new either. I mean, I know that he wanted to be killed off at the end of Empire Strikes Back. That was never a secret.
Right, but it made sense because you know what? Because you had Kylo Ren, who was this badass character.
Right.
And then he took off his helmet, and he wasn't so badass. It was kind of like, oh my God, he's a kid.
That's kind of the point. I mean, a lot of people that I talked to that really had an issue with it, oh, well, he's young and he's whiny. It's like, well, that's exactly what Luke Skywalker was in A New Hope. I mean,
and that's exactly what Anakin was in your favorite trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know you love the prequels.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, they're doing the same thing over again, but in a different way and with a different generation, and it works.
Well, here's an example for you. I mean, do you really mean to tell me that if you look at, say, the Indiana Jones trilogy, that doesn't seem to follow the same formula? The Rocky trilogy, that doesn't seem to follow a little bit of a similar formula?
It does.
Just because they're similar doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. As long as it works, I don't give a shit. Keep doing the same thing.
We should talk about the Indiana Jones movies at one point.
Yeah.
Because you had brought that up, and not to stray from topic, but a lot of people, you know, and myself included, have a problem with Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
Yeah.
It's not any more unbelievable than Temple of Doom was, but Temple of Doom was so freaking awesome.
Yeah.
You know, so... But anyway, going back to Star Wars, I mean, they established a universe where, yeah, okay, you got this young guy, he's supposed to be the big bad guy, and then he takes off his helmet and he's not taken so seriously, but then he kills his own dad, you know, and it's kind of like, all right, well, you can see where this guy could potentially be more of a threat than Darth Vader ever was.
And the other thing is, the movie tells you specifically at one point, he's not a Sith Lord yet. He's not Darth Vader. He's not that far along in the process. Mm-hmm. He's in the very early stages of becoming a Sith Lord.
Well, and on that note, my only problem with it was that he was able to basically stand hand to hand with a guy who was a former stormtrooper.
Right.
You know, it was like anybody could go up against him and fight him and win. So why was everybody afraid of him?
Well, two things. I mean, you remember he was shot in the hip by the bowcaster.
Right.
That the movie makes reference to all over the movie about how powerful a weapon it is.
Yeah.
And he takes a shot right in the hip with it. You see him kind of
think about that.
So it's not like he was at full strength. And secondly, again, he's not a Sith Lord yet. He's just in the unique position of being one of the few people that have these kind of powers. So he has a little bit of an advantage over somebody else. Not to mention, his stormtrooper in general is combat ready. I mean, it's not like he's going up against somebody that's completely green. This is somebody that, is trained in combat techniques.
Yes.
And, Finn kind of got his ass kicked. I mean, he didn't exactly acquit himself. He just didn't die.
So, do you have any theories on where everything's going?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they're setting up like crazy that Rey is going to be Luke's daughter.
You know what? Honestly, I hope. I've heard a lot of things. I heard that she might be Palpatine's clone. I
can't see that.
She might be Obi-Wan's long lost granddaughter. I really, the only logical way, the Star Wars movies have always revolved around the Skywalkers.
And if you remember too, the movie even makes reference at one point about the lightsaber specifically. Mm-hmm. And incidentally, I thought it was cute where Han Solo asks, where in the hell did you get that? Just like, that's a question for another time.
Yeah. No,
as if kind of referencing the same thing that all the audience is thinking to themselves, like, wait a second, in Empire Strikes Back, this thing was lost. Like, where on earth?
Right.
It's like, I know. We'll get to it.
Right, and I'm sure they will, because they've got all these, now Disney's...
They almost told you they were going to.
Disney, honestly, in my opinion, has not done anything wrong.
No.
I mean... They really know what they're doing, and they care about what they're doing storyline-wise. So I'm sure at some point, with one of the millions of spin-off movies they're going to do that's going to frustrate my wallet, they're going to touch on all that. And, there might be 8 or 9 questions that come out of The Force Awakens, but I think that we're going to end up being happy in the end.
I agree. I mean, I really think the future for the franchise looks very, very bright. I think there's... Any of the questions that you have at this point... I think you're supposed to have. I don't think that's anything that's completely other than by design. I really do.
Right.
I mean, I think that... I mean, again, if you go back to A New Hope, you didn't know everything about the Empire.
No, you knew nothing.
You didn't even see the Emperor.
Right.
I mean, there were so many unanswered questions coming out of that movie.
Well, yeah, and if you watch the original trilogy without watching the prequels, and the prequels, they're nowhere near as good, but they do answer some things. Coming out of 4, 5, and 6, seeing them first.
Yep.
Okay, there was this all-powerful emperor. Who the hell was he?
Right.
Really, in my opinion, the prequel trilogy was to establish who he was. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily Vader, but who Palpatine was. Because, I mean, you didn't know anything before that.
And this one, it's sort of the same thing. I mean, you look at Snoke, for example. I mean, you brought him up. You're not really supposed to know. Again, this is part 1 of a 3-part story. Mm-hmm. You're only getting the first chapter of 3. This is the first act.
Right.
So for you to walk out of this movie and say, oh, well, they didn't explain this, or, oh, I don't know that, they're not done. So you kind of have to wait to see it through to really start criticizing the plot holes that they did or didn't answer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. So,
I loved it, though. I thought it was great.
I did, too.
Again, few issues here or there. Like Star Killer base. Dude, it's the Death Star.
But
it is. It's the Death Star.
And people have a problem with the name of that. It is the Death Star. But you know why he called it that? George Lucas, when he
was it the Force, the video game? Is that something?
No.
All right.
When George Lucas originally wrote, and this is only because I'm, I look at different writing aspects, and I'm a nerd, but.
Probably more the latter than the former.
Yeah, probably. Sure. When he originally came up with the name Luke Skywalker, it wasn't Luke Skywalker.
Oh, that's right.
It was Luke Starkiller. So when I heard that Starkiller base, I was like, actually, that's kind of really creative and cool on J.J. Abrams' part.
Little reference.
Yeah, to do that. So I was kind of happy with that. But so overall, The Force Awakens, what do you give it out of 5?
4.5. I loved it. Again, little tiny issue here or there, but man, in general, the good far and away outweighed the bad.
Yeah,
it really did.
I agree with you.
I a little bit, but
yeah, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5 too, because
I adored it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. Again, just in general, the movies have gotten so expensive anymore. I mean, to be able to go, I really kind of cherry pick what I see and what I don't nowadays. This is the first one I've double and triple dipped on in a long time.
Oh, really? See, I'm dying to get it on DVD again.
Ran out, got the DVD. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, that was cool. All right, so we'll I guess we'll do this again.
Definitely.
We'll pick a couple other movies.
Yep.
So, wow, we don't have an email or anything.
No, first one. We're totally new.
So yeah, tune in next time. Cool.
Now we're on.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Cheers.
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 So good beer.
Delicious beer.
And good movies, or maybe not good movies.
It was an okay movie.
Are you doing that too? I don't know.
There's a little
So
delay.
yeah, so Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice and Star Wars because of the Blu-ray release.
It just makes sense, yeah. to
yeah,
double back to it a
Star
little
Wars:
bit.
The Force Awakens. Maybe we can even touch on that trailer of Rogue One that showed today.
Definitely.
All right, so we have. This is Ron.
Hi, this is Rick.
Yeah, hi. So we're kind of
What are you drinking?
We're movie guys. I'm drinking a Flying Fish Abbey Double.
Ah, nice.
What do you got?
I've got a Mad Hatter. I'm not sure. Oh, New Holland. New Holland Brewing. The Mad
Nice.
Hatter. Yeah.
Nice.
Delicious.
So-
should I be looking at Ron's
Thank you.
Periscope or yours?
Either one. You know, no, mine because he's
Because
not.
I just
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not
well,
on.
Okay, sorry. There's, we're getting, it's the editor that's not
Producer.
whatever.
you're getting comments.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, am I? All right. Batman vs Superman had a lot going on. Well, actually, we're going to get on to that because Ron and I have big kind of differences on takes in this movie, and
Overall, I would venture to say that we're both probably on the same page in the sense that it's good.
right now, a little bit of background on me at least. I grew up a big comic book fan, so to me, seeing this, I'm very critical, but I'm also a big movie fan. So I tried to go into it pretty neutral. Like, what's your take going into it?
I've waited for this one for a while. I've waited for a good Superman film for a while, and I felt like I got it with Man of Steel, so that sort of amped up my anticipation for this one. I was really looking forward to this.
Okay.
Especially with a lot of the things that were coming out about it. Like, just for example's sake, I mean, the choice for Ben Affleck as Batman. I really like Ben Affleck. I thought he was on a little bit of a hot streak. I saw this as being a really good casting choice, so I was kind of excited to see how it would go. I mean, I was really looking forward to it.
Right.
Read comic books for years and everything. I mean, this was one that I really earmarked as maybe DC's kind of coming out party to keep up with Marvel a little bit.
Yeah, and they needed to do something because I mean, Marvel's pretty much owned everything. Now DC on the TV side, DC has kind of been owning it.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel's got some good shows, and you can't. And I don't count the Netflix shows as TV. It's kind of more of a rental thing, and that's going. Maybe we can do that in another broadcast or whatever. But I mean, so we both have comic book backgrounds. We're familiar with it a little bit, and then so we both went into this, and we came out of it seeing two